Hello, everyone, and welcome to Your Mind, Your Reality, Your Results, a weekly show where I talk to an expert in the matter of mindset so you can switch your mindset to get the amazing results you want. If you haven't met me before, my name's Leah Fink, and I'm the owner and founder of All Thrive, where I help protect people from the pain of damaged relationships. And I am so pleased today to be joined by Lana Walsh. Welcome to the show, Lana.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, we're very excited to be able to enjoy your knowledge because it is in a place that affects a ton of people and is super, super helpful. So I'm so excited to have that. If you want to take advantage of Lana's knowledge as you're watching this, please do feel free to add your questions or comments in the comment box down there. Even if you're watching this after it's been filmed and it's not live anymore, feel free to put your questions and comments in there because then we can get back to you and you can still capitalize on the wonderful knowledge we have in front of us here today. So, Lana, why don't we start by hearing a little bit about you and your journey to becoming the coach that you are today?
Sure. Well, I'm a sleep coach because I suffered from insomnia for over 30 years. When I was a teenager, my parents thought I was just a typical teenager. I was sleeping in late. I didn't want to get up and go to school. I was really cranky and irritable. But the truth was I was tossing and turning so much, I'd have to get out of bed to rearrange my clothes because they were wrapped so tight around me. Turns out I have restless leg syndrome, and that's an uncontrollable urge to move your legs. And when you try to control the motion, you get a pain sensation. Now, people describe it differently, from like itching or tingling. My great grandmother called it her creepy legs, but for me, it's a burning in my thighs. And it's only alleviated by movement, and it gets worse with fatigue. So even the last few weeks, I've noticed my legs really bothering me about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. I'll be watching TV and I have to get up and pace and do some exercises because they're just going like crazy. I can't stop it. But this went on for a decade before I got it diagnosed and treated, and that led me to developing insomnia. And I spent 30 years trying to figure out the answer. I did what a lot of people do. I Googled it. I tried all the things that they recommend, turning off your devices, hanging the blackout blinds, making the room cool, removing distractions. I was on sleeping pills, supplements. I tried it all. And I learned how to fix my insomnia, starting with reducing stress and anxiety. I was introduced to a technique called emotional freedoms technique, which is also called tapping. Tapping on acupressure points to reduce your stress. And that led me to starting to sleep better and to doing some research, which led me to a Harvard-based program, fully science-backed and clinically proven, called CBTI, Cognitive Behavioral Therapy for Insomnia. And when I implemented those strategies, I cured my insomnia. And so I became trained under the doctor who developed the program at Harvard so I could help other people just like me completely transform their life. It's 100% the opposite of what you feel right now is how it feels to be a good sleeper. It's just unbelievable the difference it's made in my life. And so that's why I'm here. I want people to feel as good as I do now because I can't believe the difference it has made in my life. So
That's fantastic. And, when I heard your story the first time, it's just, oh my, I cannot imagine 30 years of insomnia. I'm pretty fortunate that usually I sleep pretty well. And I was still thinking those days when I know I don't get sleep, the slight emotional piece to it, or just that grogginess or whatever that is. So that's amazing that you, first of all, got through that time. And now that you're able to help people with it. And from what I understand, you have a program that you do that with. Do you want to share a little bit about the steps you take people through so this audience will get to hear about some of those tricks?
Yeah, you bet. So yeah, I do have a 6-week program, and like I said, it's based on that Harvard study. So it's actually been completely researched, and there's a reason why it's done in this order. So the first thing to do is to reduce stress and anxiety, and I'll talk a little bit about that before I go on to the next steps because. Yeah, stress is the number one reason people can't sleep. Even good sleepers like you can have bad nights when you're under a tremendous amount of stress. And in fact, stress is often the precursor to development of insomnia. So if you can find a way to reduce your stress and anxiety every day, then you will help yourself overcome any sleeping issues that you might have. So some of the ways you can reduce stress is your typical ways. There's like meditation, journaling, exercise, those kinds of things. However, when you're really tired, like I used to be, exercise doesn't really sound like something you want to do. But the research shows just 20 minutes 3 times a week will actually improve your sleep. And those 20 minutes could be something as simple as vacuuming your house. Anything that just gets your heart rate elevated will help you with your sleep. But there's some other ways you can use to reduce stress, and that's like get some more sunlight, get outside. Sunlight is optimal for helping your sleep cycle because it's how melatonin knows what to do. It shuts down in the morning when you get bright light, and it starts to turn on at night when the sun goes down. So if you can get out for that sunlight, it helps regulate that sleep-wake cycle. But another way is just to do deep breathing. When we're under stress, we breathe shallowly or sometimes hold our breath. And that's really inefficient exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide, which puts additional stress on your body. So even just deep breathing into our abdomen, which is how we breathe when we sleep, is into our abdomen. It relaxes you and helps calm you down. So that's another way to calm yourself down. And then there's the unconventional methods like tapping or Reiki or massage or those kinds of methods that can also help you reduce stress and anxiety. So that's the number one thing anybody can do to help them sleep better. Then my second step is all about mindset, which is I know something that you coach on, right, Leah?
Yep, totally.
Yeah, so mindset, when it comes to changing your sleep habits and patterns, is really important. So the second step is to educate yourself about your sleep, how it works. Why is it harder for you to go to sleep certain times? How does your circadian rhythm work? What's the chemical process that happens in the brain? This mindset shift also goes from I'm a terrible sleeper, I'm never going to get a good night's sleep, to I'm getting enough sleep, I can do it, I've done this before, I'm going to do it again, it's going to be okay. Because in steps 3 and 4, we do actual techniques, sleep strategies that reset your sleep cycle. And those strategies can get difficult because it's making you do things that are hard to do, like sometimes stay up later than you're used to, get out of bed earlier than you're used to, get out of bed when you can't sleep and do something relaxing so you can go back to sleep. Some of those things are really hard to do when you're in an insomnia event, but it works like a charm. All of my clients improve their sleep so much in weeks 3 and 4. They're reducing their time awake at night by half or more during weeks 3 and 4 because we are using these strategies to get your schedule on track. Step 5 is we do some more advanced stress reduction techniques because it is so important, especially after you're sleeping better. There's always a chance to relapse because you're always under stress. There's always going to be something that happens. So learning advanced techniques is really helpful. And the last step is sleep hygiene habits. So all of those things that you read about on Google, those are mostly the sleep hygiene habits. They don't actually help you fix your insomnia. However, they do help you with getting a better quality of sleep. So that's why we teach it last, so that by that time when you're sleeping better, you can add in some hygiene habits to just get even better quality sleep. So that's my 6 steps. It's really quite simple. It's you learn one thing and you implement it. It's really easy to follow.
Awesome. Thank you. And so for the people who are watching right now, because they might not have the awesome opportunity to work with you, are there specific small practices that you could give as a takeaway? Like when I think of mindset, it's really easy, for example, to say, well, stop saying that to yourself. It's really easy to say, stop calling yourself a bad sleeper. If it was that easy, everyone would do it. Do you have any, tips that you could give people of how they could start reframing that mindset?
Yeah, well, so the first thing I would suggest is actually start tracking your sleep. for 1 week, write down what time you turned out the light, how long it took you to fall asleep, how many times you woke up at night, how long you were awake during the night. So if you were awake 3 times during the night and one time was 15 minutes, one time was 30 minutes, and one time was 2 hours, then you're 2 hours and 45 minutes awake during the night. And then what time you last woke up before you got out of bed and what time you got out of bed. So track those things for 1 week, because I think you'll be surprised at how much sleep you're actually getting. So I'll give you an example. My one client said to me before she started the program, I'm only getting about 5 hours of sleep on the nights I have insomnia. And, I feel listless and I'm unmotivated and unproductive. But when I have a good night's sleep, I'm getting 8 hours of sleep and I feel great. Her first week tracking her sleep, she was actually sleeping longer on the night she had insomnia than the night she wasn't. She was averaging 6.7 hours a night when she had insomnia and only 6.5 hours a night when she didn't have insomnia. So she really overestimated how much sleep she was getting when she was sleeping well and really underestimated how much sleep she was getting when she was sleeping poorly. Now, why is that? It's because when you're lying awake, tossing and turning, stressing out, you have no concept of how much time is passing. So just for example, when you have to do something you don't want to do, 5 minutes feels like an hour. But when you're doing something you really like, 5 minutes feels like 30 seconds, right? It's just a different way of perceiving what's happening. So the first step is track your sleep and see what's actually happening. And then you'll be able to go, okay, well, maybe I'm doing better than I thought. So then you can start to reframe that to, okay, I'm getting more sleep than I think I am. That's the one I usually share with my clients the most.
Yeah.
So that's the first step.
Oh, that's really interesting, that difference in perception. And I also wonder too, if you're sitting there for 2 hours a night, thinking about how you're not getting sleep, that the sleep you're getting after that with that mindset is also poorer. So, those six and some hours actually feels like less than those than the lesser amount where you were maybe sleeping more deeply.
Exactly. And part of it is you're in this mindset that, I'm having a bad night, so it's just going to continue to get worse. Another thing that happens with poor sleepers is they tend to perceive light sleep as wakefulness. So that's another thing. When you're in light sleep takes up about half of our night. So sometimes they perceive that light sleep as wakefulness, so then it doesn't feel as restful, just like you said. So that's usually, and that light sleep happens more in the later part of the night. Your deep sleep happens in the first half of the night, and later in the night you get a lot less deep sleep. So it is lighter overall. Okay. So after you've been awake in the middle of the night and you go back to sleep, you're in a lighter stage of sleep anyway, so it doesn't feel as restful. Now, how you know if you're in light sleep or wake is if time passes quickly, you've likely been asleep. So if you were looking at the clock and it was like 15 minutes, and suddenly an hour goes by, you were likely in light sleep.
Yeah, no, that makes sense too. So is there something, is that kind of a fact? Like there's no way to make that sleep deeper. It's just automatically going to be a light sleep. So you have to be conscious of then when you do wake up that it's automatically going to affect everything.
Yeah, so we get about 20 minutes of 20% of our night is made up of deep sleep. But because it's the most important sleep stage, the brain automatically goes to deep sleep in longer stretches earlier in the night to ensure that your brain gets that deep sleep time. And dream sleep is the second most important stage. So your brain will make sure you get at least 50% of your dream sleep in the early part of the night. So what happens is, like, when you have a bad night of sleep, your brain is programmed to make up the deep sleep and dream sleep it lost. So you'll have longer stretches of deep sleep and dream sleep in subsequent nights if you've had a bad night of sleep. So your brain is programmed to make up for any sleep loss that you have. So that's another mindset shift that you can have, is that your brain is designed to make up for the loss. So even if you have a bad night, you know that it's going to be made up and you're going to be okay.
Cool. When I was actually wondering about that too, and maybe we should have given this definition at the beginning too of insomnia. And would you consider insomnia also when people, like maybe you are sleeping the full 8 hours that you're in bed, you don't feel awake at any time, but you're getting very poor sleep? Would that also fit in this definition?
Yeah, so one of the symptoms of insomnia is sleeping through the night and not feeling rested when you wake up. Another symptom is waking up before you want to. So like, if you wake up an hour or two before your alarm goes off and you can't go back to sleep, that falls under insomnia. If you are awake for an hour in the middle of the night and can't go back to sleep, that's insomnia. If it takes you an hour to go to sleep at the beginning of the night, that's insomnia. This doesn't mean that you don't sleep at all, and it doesn't mean it happens every day. That's just the definition of insomnia.
Yeah, that makes sense. So basically kind of the whole range of poor sleep. And then but insomnia is more of like a bigger definition, is not just one night of this. This is when it's consistently happening night after night. Right. And then you start feeling those long-term effects.
Yeah. So like insomnia can be short-term and it can come and go. Like you can have it for like a week when you're under stress and then not have it for months or years. But chronic insomnia is if this is going on 3 or more nights per week and that's lasting more than 3 months. Then that falls under chronic insomnia. Now, clinically, to be clinically diagnosed with insomnia, you would also have to perceive a negative consequence throughout the day. So if you feel irritable, anxious, stressed, unmotivated, unproductive because you had a bad night's sleep, that falls under the clinical diagnosis. So for me, I should have been clinically diagnosed with chronic sleep maintenance insomnia because that's what I had. I'd wake up in the night and I couldn't go back to sleep. So that was my problem.
So if you had gone into a doctor and gotten that diagnosis, would their general recommendation have been along these lines, or would they have given you sleeping medication, or is that kind of how it's generally band-aided right now?
Yeah, well, I was on prescription medications for 10 years. So, and I was never clinically diagnosed. I was never sent to, I shouldn't say that. I was sent to a specialist to get my restless legs confirmed diagnosis. I did the sleep test. They proved I didn't have sleep apnea, that I had restless leg syndrome. But nobody ever said anything about insomnia. I'd go to my doctor and I'd say, I'm having trouble sleeping, and I'd get prescription pills. And that was it. There was never any conversation about what's going on. There was never any recommendation to even see like a psychiatrist or somebody that might be able to diagnose me. I never got any of that. Now, CBTI, it was developed in the 90s at Harvard. It's been since recommended by the American Academy of Sleep Medicine and the Canadian Sleep Society. The American Academy of Sleep Medicine recommended it as the first line of treatment in 2008. So it's not been around that long, and that's why people don't know about it, which is why I like to spread the message, because it is an all-natural process that has really great stats, and it's recommended as the first line of intervention before prescribing prescription drugs. So that's part of my message, is sharing that information with people.
I very much feel that, because a lot of my work is also in line with the idea for mental health, building resilience. And this, to me really fits in perfectly, that idea of, instead of waiting till you can't get any more sleep until maybe they prescribe a medication, which of course would be very important to have at that point, ideally that people can, at the very least, take some of the tricks from this and start applying them to their own sleep life. Like, what are my mindsets around this? How have I been thinking, or what have I been doing that's maybe not helping my sleep?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. There's just so many things that go into what has triggered and caused and sustained and maintained your insomnia. It's basically a learned behavior. It's a habit that's been going on over and over and over again. So what you need to do is like reprogram that habit so that your brain remembers the bed is where you sleep. And it sounds strange, but if you know anything about how subconscious works, It's a bit like Pavlov's dog, learning to salivate at the sound of a bell. You spend so much time in bed awake that your brain starts to believe that's the place where you're awake to think, worry, create whatever those things are that are spinning in your mind while you're tossing and turning. Your brain starts to learn that's where you do that. Yeah. And so it's just a reprogramming of your brain.
Well, and for your step 6, which is what most people start and end with and then get annoyed maybe if it isn't working, that's what you'd call the sleep hygiene, right? Is, don't be playing games in your bed when you're not sleeping. Make sure you're moving to somewhere else. Is that one of those?
Yes. So, when you read the tricks on Google, some of them are strategies that I would also use. So things like, don't go to bed until you're sleepy. So that's another trick you guys can start using right away tonight. Do not get into your bed until you're sleepy. A lot of people get into bed and they watch TV or they read until they're ready to go to sleep, and then they turn out the light. Well, that's part of how you're training your brain that you're doing to do something else in bed other than sleep. So if you don't go to bed till you're sleepy, so read or watch TV in a different room, and when you're sleepy, you're yawning excessively or nodding off. You're not feeling tired. There's a difference. Tired is a weariness or a desire for sleep. But that doesn't mean when you close your eyes, you're going to go to sleep. Sleepy is your body has to get sleep because you're going to fall asleep if you don't let it. It's just going to do it on its own because you need sleep. So that's what you want to do, is wait until you're sleepy to go to bed. So that would be a trick that you would read on Google, but you might try it a couple of nights and it doesn't help you, because part of the reason is because you're still awake in the middle of the night and you haven't figured out how to go back to sleep in the middle of the night. So now you still have a few hours in the night where you're still awake. So your brain has not reprogrammed itself yet to sleep fully through the night. So you have to add another strategy in, which is to shorten your night, do some sleep restriction. Okay, so that's why it's a process, because you are basically unlearning something that your subconscious does automatically. And so it takes a process, like any habit, like weight loss or anything like that. You can't just throw all the things in a blender and go, okay, let's hope it works. You have to stack the habit on the habit.
And what I'm hearing too is really that encouragement for people that this is not an instant process. You need
Exactly.
You need to take a little bit of time. You're not just going to go to sleep one night and apply all of this and it's going to be perfect. It's a practice.
Yeah, exactly. And, my clients and they, throughout my 6-week program, they go up and down. Like some of my clients, they'll cut their time awake at night in half in the second week. And then they'll have a week where they're like, it's, kind of up and down and up and down. And one of my clients, he would message me almost daily. So this happened last night. Is this normal? I don't know.
Yeah. So if I can come back to one piece, which I'd like to dive a little bit more into, because I think it's really in line with the show, and maybe for people who are watching this and somewhat interested, but going, my sleep's not that bad, is the part that you're talking about again at the beginning with stress. And stress is huge. It's for a lot of people also, again, not just an instant fix. They do a couple deep breaths and that's it. It might be a longer term piece. Would you have some extra tools or practices that they could do outside of those, or any other thoughts around that?
Yeah. So, so I'll just kind of explain how stress works and the stress hormones work, because it'll help you understand why, when you just do some simple stress reduction techniques, it's not helping you. Okay. So stress obviously creates the stress hormone or the stress response, which is the fight or flight. So when we're under a physical stressor, the fight or flight kicks in. We get an increase in adrenaline and cortisol. Now, those two hormones, what they do is they increase your muscle tension, your blood pressure, your heart rate, and your brain waves. This is so you can decide quickly if you're going to fight or you're going to flee, which corner you need to take, what you need to do, and your body is prepared to take that action. Now, when the physical threat is gone, your body automatically goes, okay, we no longer need these stress hormones in our body, and it releases them. So, you know, when you avoid that car accident and you survive, you kind of get like this, whew, you're like, get this relief. And that's those hormones, you know, dispersing out of your body. 99% of our stress today is psychological. This is the fights we have with our partner, the bad performance review from our boss, losing a client, getting a nasty comment on our social media. They have the same reaction to this, the stress response as a physical stressor. However, there's no automatic end to them. In fact, you could probably tell me of something that happened to you when you were a child that when you think about it today, it makes you like, go, can't believe I did that, right? That's how long some of these psychological stressors can stick with us, that just remembering them brings back the stress response. So when we're under a psychological stressor, we tend to replay it in our mind. That conversation, I wish I would have said, I wish I would have done. If I did this way, that instead, then maybe this would have happened. And you just like sort of play it over and over and over in your mind, and that can go on for days. So if you're not dealing specifically with the psychological stressor that's bothering you, then it will continue to creep up and cause stress in your body, even though consciously, this is all happening subconsciously, by the way, consciously our brain thinks it's over. That happened last week. It's no big deal. But yet you can feel it a little bit in your guts or your chest or however you feel stress in your body, you still feel it. So you have to deal specifically with the issue that was causing you stress. And that's why I use tapping, tapping on various acupressure points on your body. It helps bring your nervous system into calm quickly. So I'll show you really quickly what you can do. I won't take you through the full tapping process. That's way too long for me to talk about, but just squeezing your fingers, the tops of your fingers on every one of your fingers, both hands. So if you can either tap on them or you can squeeze them. This is one of the techniques you can use in tapping. I use this one in the middle of the night, by the way, to calm my nervous system down when it's activated. Just squeeze those fingers and just remind yourself, I can think about that tomorrow. This is what I do in the middle of the night. I'll think about that tomorrow. It's time for sleep. While I'm squeezing my fingers, it's time for sleep. I can think about that tomorrow. I'll remember to do those things tomorrow. It's time to sleep. And I'll just go through that a few times just to calm myself down and try to get it out of my mind.
Well, that's super helpful. Thank you for that little. I'll have to try that out. My friend here is a good de-stressor as well.
Yes, nice.
What I really love about what you've just suggested, or how I think it relates, because there's a lot of people on my LinkedIn, for example, who are watching this who are entrepreneurs. And one thing we also know about entrepreneurs is they maybe experience some slightly different stress, some additional stress in that chronic long-term way, and are a much higher risk for mental health challenges as well, from 48% for employees to 72% for entrepreneurs. So I would think in that lens, this becomes so much more important in a way, that if you can't turn off thinking about your business all day and night, if you can't, release the stressor of where the money is coming from or whatever that is, that would just add to this in all the ways too, like to the sleep, to the mental health, to the physical health, and just continues on.
Yeah, it's so true. Entrepreneurs are so stressed, and I understand. I'm the same. I find though my stress comes from creating something new. So that could be something that you don't think of it as stress. Like I just did a brand new webinar this past week, and I would wake up in the middle of the night. Oh, I have to remember to add that slide. Oh, I have to remember to talk about this there, and I'm just like, because when you're fully relaxed, that's when your creative brain can kick in. So I get my most creative ideas in the middle of the night.
Totally. Huh. Awesome.
But yeah, reminding yourself that you can think about it tomorrow, that you can do it tomorrow, that you have time to get it done, that you will remember to do it. Because those are some of the things that the reasons why you think about them is you're like, oh, I have to remember to do this. I have to remember to do this. Well, I will remember. you know.
Yeah, telling yourself that. Well, I know we're coming up on the end of our time here. From what I understand, you have a gift that people are welcome to use to really help reinforce what we talked about today.
Yeah, you bet. I've got a free download. It's 12 ways to fall asleep faster naturally. So one of the things that I know, especially if this is a lot of entrepreneurs watching this, we have a hard time shutting down at the end of the night. So, you know, one of the strategies that I share with people is to give yourself a buffer time where you completely shut down everything you need to do and give yourself time to relax and prepare for bed. So this 12 ways to fall asleep faster will give you some suggestions.
Awesome. Well, we'll make sure that that goes in the comments. We'll also make sure that your contact info goes in the comments. So if people have questions, if they're intrigued about your work, they can reach out, which I certainly encourage having a conversation, because I definitely have gotten a lot all the times we've connected. With that, that is our time. I want to thank you so much for being here today, Lana.
Thank you so much for having me. I really had a great time.
Excellent. And thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.